President-elect Biden is showing interest in addressing trade imbalances as U.S. imports into China are standing at less than half of 2020's target. Biden has said one of his priorities is reestablishing relationships with U.S. allies. Trade relations, of course, being one of his top focuses. Joining me now from Los Angeles with more on this trade imbalance and how it's affecting consumers is Port of LA Executive Director Gene Soroka. Gene, it's really great to have you on Quick Take today. Thanks for taking the time. How do you see the current trade imbalance? How do you see that play out in the port?
It's been very difficult since the initiation of the tariffs and the trade tensions back in March of 2018. We've witnessed 22 of the past 24 months to see declining export volumes here at the nation's largest port. And that widening trade gap is only exacerbated when now we see a surge of imports to replenish inventories and get goods on the shelves for our holiday season.
Okay, so enter President-elect Biden. How does a Biden administration affect your business and potentially change that trade imbalance?
I think first and foremost, we'll have a seat at the table to present our issues for consideration with policymakers, both elected and appointed, similar to the relationships we had at the most senior levels during the Obama administration.
So you and other observers of trade were pretty pessimistic about the U.S. outlook for the economy at the beginning of the pandemic. How do those initially gloomy forecasts look now and match up with the actual volume that you handled at the port in the remainder of the year and expect for this rest of this month?
Now, a number of years ago, when living in China, I was on the ground during the SARS epidemic. So I had a firsthand look at what this could be, a public health crisis, and how it would impact business. And we said early on in February that those impacts would be 10, 15, 20 times greater than what we witnessed in our industry during SARS. And I think that was on the low end. Realistically speaking, I said at that time that we would see a pendulum effect swinging about 3 times, where we needed to evacuate empty containers due to the paucity of business at that time in February, March, and April. We did that to gear up and pre-position those assets for the first round of imports, which did happen in the month of June. Since then, our monthly average is more than 45% greater than the average number of containers coming through this port in the first 6 months. And this is the third swing of that projection right now, where we're seeing numbers that are 25 to 30% higher month over month, year over year.
Wow.
So we're geared in. We've got a good line of sight as to what's coming at us to prepare on the staffing and asset-based levels.
Gene, we were just looking at some pretty incredible video from the Port of LA. Give us an idea of just how big of a port this is, what comes into it, what goes out of it, and when consumers actually interact when at the supermarket or their purchases online, they're actually buying something that came through the Port of LA.
Yeah, and recently you'd think that folks have an eye on this port every single day with the goods that are moving through it. Our complex is about 7,500 acres in property, 43 miles of waterway, and creates 400 billion US dollars in economic activity on an annual basis. But the keynote is that the cargo that traverses this port reaches each and every one of our nation's 435 congressional districts. It truly is a conversation of national significance.
What do you do for security at the port?
Starting with our Port Police and Public Safety Division led by our own Tom Gazy, we have more than 200 sworn and civilian officers right here under our charge at the Port of Los Angeles that work with our allied agencies at the municipal, county, state, and federal levels, governed by the United States Coast Guard from a regulatory effect to make sure that the goods, people, and assets are protected 24/7.
What is the choice that a company makes about using a port rather than using air freight? Because we've heard a lot about air freight in recent days as they've been talking about getting the vaccine distributed around the world. Why do companies choose to ship via port rather than ship via other methods?
It depends on the product life cycle. Pharmaceuticals, some fast fashion still moves through the air today. Those goods that have a repetitive replenishment process typically work on surface transportation. And Tim, as you know, 90% of world trade moves on water today.
It's an absolutely massive figure. When it comes to the way that consumers think about how their products get to them, what is the message that you want them to have, especially as we get into the holiday season and we can expect potential last mile delays?
Yeah, normally our holiday gifts are moving through the Port of Los Angeles between June, July,
Wow.
and the end of October. This
So
year
it's
is
already
very different,
happened.
though. It's already happened, but this year is very different. We still have holiday products that are moving through the port complex and are on the water right now, mainly due to the pandemic. And I say that because our buying patterns as US consumers have changed dramatically this year. We're no longer spending discretionary income on services. We're not going to sporting events or the movies. We're not flying on airplanes and staying in hotels. Many of us are shopping at our big box retailers, home improvement stores that have remained open during the pandemic and emergency orders, but also a huge swath of us are purchasing online. And that's what we're seeing today, the confluence of the buying change that we have exhibited thus far in 2020, the replenishment of those tangible items we've been purchasing, combined with the traditional holiday goods trying to move through our supply chains. And yes, everyone is stretched right now.
Port of LA Executive Director Gene Soroka, thanks so much for joining us on Quick Take today. We appreciate your time.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.